Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Women's Soccer Show. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Allie.
What's going on, Allie?
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. We're recording at a slightly different time, so I'm all discombobulated.
I know, it's a little weird. I usually see you in the later part of my day, and I'm seeing you as the first person that I see today. So it's good. I
poor
know.
you.
Aren't we cute? Oh, my goodness. Well, we've got a lot to talk about. We did all things international last week, and this week we've got quite a mix and a really, really fun interview with Bri Visalli that we'll come on to in the latter part of this episode. But obviously the big news out of the women's soccer world this week was not around games. It was around the French national team. So we are going to spend the majority of the first part of this episode on that. So let's do it.
What a shock. Another federation screwing up their women's team.
So Wendy Renard posted this statement translated from French to English. Quote, "I defended the blue, white, red jersey 142 times with passion, respect, commitment, and professionalism. I love France more than anything. I'm not perfect, far from it, but I can no longer endorse the current system, far from the requirements required by the highest level. It's a sad but necessary day to preserve my sanity. It is with a heavy heart that I come by this message to inform you of my decision to take a step back from the French team. Unfortunately, I will not do this World Cup in such conditions. My face can hide the pain, but my heart hurts, and I don't want to hurt anymore. Thank you for your support and respect for my decision." And I'll note that soon after, teammates Diani and Katoto released statements that followed Renard's lead, stating that they would not return until, quote, necessary changes are implemented, which is really what Wendy Renard was saying in her statement too.
Yeah, and then after that we had the FFF statement. The FFF have taken note of declarations of Renard, Dani and Katoto. It is the executive committee, which will meet on February 28th, which is as we are recording, will address the issue on that occasion. The FFF would like to remind that no individual is above the institution of the French team. Now, I'm trying to work out whether they mean that as the coach is
Absolutely
not above.
not. Are you kidding me?
But are they talking about the players? Because I read it that they're talking about the players. They're talking about.
Of course they are. And it's eerily similar, if not exactly the same words, for what the Spanish Federation used when they said to their players, 11 of them who said they would not be participating anymore with the international team until changes were made. The Spanish Federation said no one player is above this team. I think there's a lot to talk about here, but let's just stay on this statement for a second. It's astounding to me how federations never seem to learn. And when we are primed to be disappointed by a statement, and yet somehow I read this and I was still disappointed by this statement.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about this day on Friday when all of these statements were released. I wrote an article about it, and I think it's really hard to sum up in a tweet, in an article, in anything. So I want to rewind and let's go back to Friday. It was such a mix of emotions for everybody because reading Wendy Renard's statement, first of all, you feel so much deep sadness for the fact that this is how one of the greats is going to potentially step away from the international game, that she is essentially forced out of her playing career because she can't bear to withstand the, let's just call it abuse that's having to be endured by players. And then you also get a wave of pride of, I can't believe that she's essentially willing to stand up for herself against this monster of a federation, right? I can't believe she's willing to put her own career away to fight for this. And it's such a mix of very intense emotions that I think everybody was feeling that day.
Yeah, absolutely. And then having her teammates come and back her as well was just, it's not isolated, but it is I feel like the absolute critical point, because like we've talked about it 6 months ago of what's happened in the France Federation, that it is going to take someone as big, as well respected and known as Wendy in order to hopefully we'll finally see the ousting, because let's be honest, the biggest problem is the coach.
It seems that way, but nobody specifically said that. Nobody has. And I might argue and say the biggest immediate problem for the players is the coach. But the Federation hired the coach. The Federation has condoned a lot of BS over many years from many coaches. So it's all encompassing, right? I think you're onto a great point about Wendy Renard. If it hadn't been Wendy Renard, would other teammates have followed? We don't know. And I guess I'll just pose the question of what really stuck with me is this is almost unprecedented in the world of women's soccer. We haven't seen, let's just review. In the past year, Spain had 11 players decide they weren't going to play for the national team. Canada tried to literally forfeit an entire tournament and had to play because they were going to be sued, but they wanted to forfeit the tournament. And now we have 3 stars, arguably the 3 biggest stars of the French team, saying they're not going to participate. This is unprecedented in the world of women's soccer. We haven't seen this before.
No, and you know what? I think the biggest thing is what we're seeing is the reason why is the narrative of you're just lucky to be here is going away. Which I feel like, and it's very sad for those that had to go through so much torment in the previous years. But what I think with this year, with the Euros last year and the World Cup coming, is that players are now standing up for themselves because they're no longer being fed that narrative of, well, you're lucky that you can be a footballer. And I'm putting it in air quotes because that's how they used to do it. It's like,
yeah,
air quotes, so you're not making us any money. You're not doing anything.
Right.
We're just letting you be here. Whereas now players are standing up and being like, you're not letting me do anything. Like,
right. I'm making you money.
Exactly.
I'm bringing in fans. I not only deserve to be here, but you're lucky to have me.
Exactly. I have the power now.
You're totally right. It's taken so long for it to shift that way.
Yeah.
I'm curious what you think, because for me, I was taking stock of everything that's happened in the past year, and I couldn't help but really think that obviously historically, and I'm really not trying to make this US centric. I'm not.
I knew this was coming.
Well, this is just simply the history of the fight.
Yeah.
Right? Every nation has had their own fight against their own federation. And I will also say that predominantly it has stayed within those nations. We know that players support other players. We know that, the English players were supporting the US players in, 2019. Everybody was like, you go get that equal pay. But there's not much they can do.
No.
It was almost first, quote unquote, resolved. Let's just say it's not resolved here, but let's say, for lack of a better term, the U.S. signed a CBA. They have equal pay, equal treatment, equity with the men's team. That happened in August of 2022. And since then, the domino has fallen. Do you think that other teams seeing it actually come to fruition for the U.S. and seeing, this isn't just, I guess, just how much do you think that has made an impact on other teams and other players in other countries to see that the U.S. actually got there and fighting their federation publicly for it, keyword publicly, actually made a difference?
I am going to credit the USA, but I'm not going to credit that it was the CBA, because we've seen other nations, without even having to fight, say we're going to pay our national teams the same amount of money. Like England do it, Wales do it, like Sweden do it. We've seen that.
And that's fantastic, but that's not the norm.
But what I will credit the US is more the investigation into the abuse. I think that was what spearheaded everything rather than the CBA, because that is telling people you do not have to suffer in silence. You know what I mean? Because like the CBA was a thing that was a very unique US thing because they had a very big bargaining chip that other teams may not have had with the amount of World Cup wins and things like that. But having, and then seeing some repercussions happening, not as many as we would like, to people like Paul Riley, to things like that. I think having that come out publicly and having certain players, make themselves known so that other players knew that they weren't alone, I think that is what's kicking things off with the Spanish team going, you know what, we don't have to take this abuse because let's not let it carry on again. It's what's happening in France. So I think having that public reform and that statement coming out, I think is what's kicked everything off, is that, players don't need to take it anymore.
I think that's a great point. I think it's both. And I think that the key word that we both used, frankly, is publicly.
Yes.
Because we know that these battles have been happening. We know that these players have been enduring all of this abuse for, since the beginning of the inception of the women's team in whatever nation we're talking about. But the key word is publicly. And now players are becoming less and less afraid to take it public, perhaps because we've started to see that maybe now the more public it gets, the more the federation is hopefully going to be forced into doing a little bit better. We haven't seen that so far with Spain, but nobody said this was going to be a short battle. So I don't want to miss on the history of the FFF here. And we did a News in 10 on it back in, I don't know, September 2022, last fall. So let's just rewind and give everybody a bit of background on really what the FFF has been up to.
Lord, the depressingness that it is. So we saw it come to light specifically after the Spain players incident, which was that there has been allegations that have proof. It's not just someone stirring the pot, which they would like you to believe, that the head of the FFF sued a magazine for libel based on allegations, but there was proof of these allegations.
How dare you use proof of with my own text messages that I did something wrong? That is libel.
Exactly. So it's proof he was corrupt. There's been allegations from former players that there's a current coach who is currently still working within the federation, is still working with the age group that it was proven that she had... And I'm not going to call it relationships because it's not a relationship when the person is 13, 14.
No. Relations.
There was sexual contact with players that were 13, 14. And it was very much made aware that if you don't sleep with me, you don't play. And that person is still working in that age group. Yes, she may not be under the federation.
Basically.
Yes.
That happened twice. There was another coach, too, that's still working under the federation.
Yeah. It's appalling.
And what's wild, too, I mean, obviously that's wild.
Yeah.
And on top of that, somehow the FFF is really has managed to squash any of this getting out super publicly. Like, you found this, Allie, on a French dark website.
Yeah.
Still credible.
Yeah.
And translated it.
Yeah.
And somehow they're able to manage this. I guess just to say, like these... We know that the FFF has had a lot going on for a long time. And weirdly, the only thing that's made really public is when it's player versus player. And so we're made to think, oh, there's a lot of, player versus player hatred in the French team, when really we don't know what else is happening behind the scenes in the federation, in the coach, in anything, because none of that is being made public.
It's almost like they're trying to smokescreen what they're doing. So we finally come down to, so on Monday, Corinne Descartes announced that she was stepping aside from the French national team, which is huge because she's been there for 4.5 years now.
Yeah. It's a small, and like you said, it seems like most of these players' biggest problem or most immediate problem is with her.
Exactly. So it does feel like a Band-Aid over a gaping wound, but it's something.
I agree. And I think it's pretty telling that it wasn't an immediate, she stepped down and Wendy Renard was like, okay, thanks, I'll come back now. Like, this is a bigger problem. And obviously the French Federation has yet to say anything else related to that or related to Wendy Renard or Katoto or Diani. And I think this was celebrated. I mean, it is a win. It's a small win. And a lot of people online were like, hey, Jorge Vilda, take notes. Because Spain still has Jorge Vilda as their coach. But like you said, this is a small win to a much deeper problem. All right, let's go around the world. Around the world, around the world.
In the Pintar Cup, it was Iceland who came out as victors in this tournament after Wales were only able to draw with fellow home nation Scotland. Iceland comfortably beat the Philippines 5-0 to take the title.
Over to the FFA Cup of Nations. Australia take the title with a comfortable 3-0 win over Jamaica. With 3 wins out of 3, it's finally looking positive for the Matildas.
To the Tournée de France. Despite only being able to manage a draw against Norway on the final game, it was the host nation who emerged victorious and held on to the title. Probably one of the most competitive tournaments this time round. It was a great preparation for the World Cup.
And finally, speaking of the World Cup, over to World Cup qualifiers. We have 3 teams who are newly joining the World Cup this year. Portugal, Haiti, and Panama all won their qualifying tournaments to join the others in Australia this summer.
Have you checked out Total Football Analysis yet? TotalFootballAnalysis.com provides researched analysis on loads of football games, including women's football. Want to know why Miedemar scores so many goals? Do you want to explore how City have turned it around this season? Head over to TotalFootballAnalysis.com and sign up to learn more about the beautiful game. We have a special discount for listeners of the Women's Soccer Show. At checkout, type WOSO10 to get a full year for €10. That's €40 off the yearly subscription. Head over to TotalFootballAnalysis.com and type WOSO10 at checkout.
Allie, I think you should do the honors here because I'm kind of like the third wheel in this situation.
We are here with the one, the only, the legendary Bri Visalli. I promise you, you don't have to have played for West Ham to come on our podcast, but it certainly does help in my case. And for those of you are not aware, Bri was part of the 2018-2019 West Ham squad, has played for Birmingham over here, went over to the Houston Dash for a couple of years and then is back in the WSL, this time playing for Brighton and the Seagulls. Ladies and gentlemen and everybody in between, please welcome Bri Visalli.
Whoa, whoa. We should start to insert like a cheer track or something like that.
Crowd noise. Hi, thanks for having me and thank you for that lovely introduction. But yeah, happy to be here.
Thanks for being here. I'm going to jump right in and just say, Bri, if you don't mind giving the listeners a background on how you and Allie know each other, maybe an embarrassing story about Allie that none of us know. I've heard through the grapevine that you might have been their trainer at some point. So just a brief background on your relationship with Allie.
Yeah, I think we first laid eyes on each other at a West Ham game, obviously. I vividly remember Bristol for some reason and just being able to take a picture with her like postseason. It was awesome because I think she unveiled her Visalli kit, but it was really cool because specifically West Ham was just such a welcoming group of people. And it really was helpful making that transition from the States over to England, having those kind, wonderful people. To have that as my first experience was honestly really special, and I'm looking forward to it again, being back. But we have yet to reunite, hopefully soon. But yeah, also got to do the FA Cup, which was awesome.
We're kind of making our way through that West Ham team. We've talked to Brooke Hendricks, we've talked to Aaron Simon. Now we got you on, so I guess we're going to make it a goal now to talk to every single person that was rostered on that team.
It should
you
be.
Heard it here
I
first.
mean, true. Like that was, I think, the first professional season for that club. And it was my first professional season and we made it to an FA Cup final. So I'd like to think there's some magic between some of the players and staff. So yeah.
I think you're doing Allie a favor by not sharing an embarrassing story. So I'll skip over that. But I know Allie has a quick story to share before we really get into things.
Oh, so no, it's more about me than you. But we were the first time we like face to face met was at an Arsenal game, and you had messaged me on Twitter and was like, "Make sure you say hi, and make sure you say hi." And I was like, took that as an order, and the stewards kept trying to make me leave, and I was like, "No, I am waiting for our number 15. I am not moving." And they were like. And you were like talking to like every fan like thing, and then we finally got there. And and I'll put the picture to go on our Instagram. We've got a great picture, but it was just like she was like, "Now you leave."
I love that dedication because I actually remember, their stewards were really aggressive.
Yeah,
some of their fans were as well. We're not going to go there, but yeah, yes, I remember that.
All right, well, let's do it, Bri. We got some questions about your career, about everything, and then we'll get into a fun segment that we call Shirts of Our Lives, which we'll describe when we get there.
So the first one we want to talk about is obviously because of, well-known secret on the pod that I am a mad West Ham fan. So I do want to talk about your days at my beloved Hammers. Like, how did you get like scouted to come and play? How did you enjoy Romford? I asked Erin that and she pulled her face and then gave me a diplomatic answer.
Yeah, no.
You are in a nicer part of the country now, I have to.
Yeah, I mean, I did come to vacation here during our days off, not gonna lie. So I was excited about the call. But yeah, I would say the recruitment process was unique, honestly, because I entered the draft with the full intention and sole purpose of just staying in the NWSL. I guess now that everything's come to light, that was not a good fit for me for obvious reasons. My former club being Chicago, and I'm just going to leave it at that. So it was kind of a necessity situation. I had always spoken about my mom having citizenship in England, but never really acted on it. And so I guess desperate times called for desperate measures and figured out a way to get over here. And I'm a UK citizen, and honestly happened within a span of a month, which was so clutch, because if I didn't get that contract done, I was going to be stuck in the US. And to be honest, at that point, because of circumstance, I wasn't so confident in continuing to play, just because I didn't think the juice was worth the squeeze at that point, for ethical reasons, obviously. So it, in a sense, really changed the whole trajectory of my path in life. And I was a better person for it, to be honest, and also a better player, because I think in the NWSL, some of the feedback that I was receiving was like, oh, you're a technical player, but like you can't handle the physicality of the NWSL. So like, we're just not ready for you as a league yet. And so kind of got written off. But then when I came to England, there's a ton of technical players. So I wasn't special at all. And I really needed to figure out how to adapt and change and, thrive. And so West Ham was just such an amazing opportunity. And Matt really gave me that chance, honestly, and gambled on me coming here. So I'm always forever grateful for my experience there and all the people along the way that helped me get to where I am today. But yeah, very unique situation.
Definitely. I'm happy you landed at West Ham in a team that it seems like everybody we've talked to, everybody on that team just like loved being together. So you bring up technical players and physicality. So I'm curious, we actually asked, I think both Brooke and Aaron this, how would you describe the difference? You've played in the NWSL, you've played in the WSL for many years on both sides. How would you describe the difference between the two leagues, having played in both?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll probably ring similar to what the others have said. But I think that I just have found it personally to be super transitional. In the US, you obviously have these great players, and there's like no knock to that. But I think the classic American like mentality of just like action packed. So it's always one end to the other and continuously, duking it out. That would be probably why I guess it drives more towards transition. And then since being back in the WSL, it has actually picked up, in my opinion, and has become a bit more transitional. But I would say that there's a little edge to the tactics. And so I think the allure of this league in general is going to continue to keep it in this just super tactical and technical state that it currently is in. And you'll only see like a bigger physical component, I guess, with just the influx of players coming in. So that's really what the attraction is it feels like a real big hybrid now in comparison to when I first joined.
Interestingly enough, you've all given very different answers to that, if that surprises you. Well, so you were at West Ham, then Birmingham City, and then back to the Houston Dash, and you alluded to the Challenge Cup. So as somebody who was watching the Challenge Cup on my couch, and it was much of what was keeping me afloat in 2020, I know a lot of players have been outspoken about how hard it was. That's not what I'm asking. There is a very iconic photo of you double fisting, triple fisting. I'm not sure. A lot of Budweisers. We really just want to know what that celebration was like, what the whole process was like, because you joined Houston like right before that Challenge Cup. So what was that whole journey like for you?
And do you actually remember the celebration?
I remember pieces of it, but that's not necessarily what's most important. But yeah, no, I think even you alluded to it, like it was really a hard tournament. We weren't allowed to leave the hotel. Yeah. We were subjected to really poopy food because it was like hotel food. Our simple pleasures were the fact that they got us a coffee, I think, truck to come in post training and stuff like that. And that was like our big woo entertainment moment. So to win it, and that's kind of why I brought that up. It was just, it was perfect, because honestly, if we hadn't won it, it would have felt like an imprisonment, if I can say that, for a month for nothing. And so it was incredible. So obviously when you saw me getting obliterated by, this is the sad part, it wasn't even Bud Heavies, they were Bud Lights, because they're technically different alcohol in Utah with laws.
Oh, yeah. Right after a 90-minute soccer game, I'm assuming none of you had anything to eat either. And it was just like,
Sure,
we're
we could
free.
blame it
We're
on
done.
altitude, the lack of nutrition. No, it was like a very cathartic release. And yeah, I joke with some of my best friends even to this day. I think I said I was just vibing with the photographer because there was obviously those very iconic photos where I look like Gollum, which they then put on a t-shirt, actually.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it
The
I
club
thought
did or like fans did?
the club, and that's the sad part. I
Yeah.
genuinely thought in that moment of like minimal sobriety. I was like, surely these aren't going anywhere because we're getting drunk right now.
Yeah.
No, they carried on those photos. I'm pretty sure there was that trend where it was like, this is Monday for us. And it was just like a slideshow of all of the photos of me just looking absolutely ridiculous.
I'm
And
glad
so,
you guys could have that celebration. Everybody did seem genuinely happy, whether it's in speaking to a lot of you all since then. It seems like the joy came A, from winning, and B, being done with it. But yeah, I mean, I guess to say as fans, we all knew how hard it was for all of you, and we very much appreciated that you all did that, knowing that it wasn't fully for the fans, but just to take a moment to say that.
yeah, I mean, just an acknowledgement too to like some of the socials situation that was going on as well. That was probably the harder part of all of it, is just, I guess, wrestling with everything that was happening. And so, yeah, needless to say, there was a lot. It was a very emotionally charged tournament for a lot of players and people. And so it was really great to at least have it felt like a positive outcome for the group come out of it.
Yeah.
Well, I just have a really quick question. The fact that once you'd left the Dash, was the WSL always the game plan, or was it just, I fancy a different challenge, I might go somewhere else? Because, I mean, Brighton is a legendary club within the WSL, so it's an interesting move.
Yeah, I think for me personally, because I had left in the middle of that COVID year where they had cut the season short, I had always felt like I had unfinished business. And I just hadn't wrapped up that part of my life. And it was funny because I used to get kind of told off by my roommate because I'd always be like, look at this, like it's so much better over in England. Like, look at this, so much better over in England. And she was like, go back then, kind of thing. And I just was like, maybe I will, but like wasn't always super certain of it because, you know, your journey it's just hard to say, especially in sport with your journey. And it can just take turns. It can take U-turns. It can just hit a dead end sometimes. And so I just think for me, I'd always had it in the back of my mind that this was something that I had wanted to come back and do. And honestly, I'm not going to lie, with the participation that I had within the NWSLPA with the collective bargaining agreement and some of the conversations regarding like sponsorships and other things of that nature, and you know, the player involvement in that really spurred me forward also to look at like what the Super League has done, because it's also incredible in terms of like the standard that they've set. And so in the addition to that, like signing on with Sky Sports, I think one day I woke up in the off season and I turned on the TV and it was the women playing on like prime time in the morning. It was like a soccer Saturday or something, and I just was like, wow, the league has just it's growing exponentially, and I would just love to be part of it. And so realistically for me, I think it was something that subconsciously came to fruition, but I don't think I consciously like set out at the time. But I definitely think that I was always with an eye towards, oh, what if, thinking, what if I go back? Like, what if, kind of thing. So yeah.
Cool. Right. We are now going to move on to the segment that our fans absolutely love. So it's called Shirts of Our Lives, or Jerseys, as Sarah keeps making me call it.
I do not.
She's like, our Americans won't understand what you mean. So basically, it's 3 quick questions about the different football shirts that you've worn and what they symbolise in your footballing journey. So we're going to start with the first one, which is, what shirt symbolises the very beginning of your football journey?
I mean, I can send you guys a photo, but it's actually, I think, on my Instagram. So, but it's a photo with the hair down. Like, you knew business was to be had, and it was a recreational church league. So that's pretty cool, I guess. But it was I think we were called the Red Wings, which makes no sense
No sense.
considering it's a different sport.
Yep.
Go America, because we do things like that. But yeah, the Red Wings, I'm pretty sure. And my stepfather, who knows nothing even now, well, knows more about soccer, was my coach. So yeah.
Oh.
And I hated it at the time. I was his star defender because I would distract the other team's forward by picking daisies with them. Yeah. Started my career as a defender. So yeah, that would be number one where it began.
There's always one in the rec league that picks daisies during the game, but you don't assume it to be the person who ended up playing professionally. So that's actually really great to hear.
There's hope, parents. Don't give up.
All right. Well, this might lead us very nicely into maybe when you decided to like it or when something changed. What shirt or jersey symbolizes the turning point in your career?
Definitely think it might have been my college journey or jersey, because that for me, I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, Allie, but I wasn't planning on going pro, and I wasn't interested in it because I didn't know it was like a real thing. I think you know as well that the league just would fold or it would barely stay afloat. And so growing up, I had the Cyber Rays in my backyard because yes,
Had that shirt.
but then the Cyber Rays, and then the FC Gulf Pride comes in, and then they go back out. And so for me, it was just, it really wasn't real unless you were playing for the US women's national team. And like growing up, I didn't even do ODP. So it wasn't a dream of mine, to be completely honest. And in college, it kind of started to change because I was noticing some of the folks that were going pro, and I was like, she's going pro. I could do this kind of thing. And I had a coach that finally believed in me as well and was like, you can definitely do this. Like, I just was waiting on you to pull your head out. And you're like, oh, okay, that's great. So then we ended up doing a bunch of work together. And I think I owe most of that turning point to him. And his name's Max Rook, and he's my one of my college coaches. So yeah, that would be a turning point.
What a difference a good coach that believes in you makes. It's literally night and day. That's awesome
Absolutely.
to hear that you had such a positive college experience.
It's not like that for everyone. So I know.
That's why I say that.
Yeah. So he was, even to this day, he's still like my number one. He's my mentor. So yeah, I got so much love for that guy.
And you went to Pepperdine, which is basically in Malibu, right? It's where Zoe 101 was shot, everybody. How did you like being on the set of Zoe 101 in Malibu? Do you surf now? What's the whole deal?
Yeah, it's funny because growing up, I had begged my mom to go to that like school thinking it was real. And she was like, it's a TV show. You do realize it's not real. So then full circle,
so funny.
I was like, did it, Mom? I did it. Even when you said I couldn't. But yeah, no, it was incredible. It's funny. It was super hard to stay focused considering the beach is just incredible. I think our field overlooking the ocean is also a huge distraction. Even if the game's not going well, just look over there, get some positive vibes, come back in, go, can't get any worse than this. Let's figure it out. My college experience was amazing. I graduated in 3.5 years and totally regret it. I wish I somehow elongated it and stayed in Malibu for as long as possible.
But Brighton Beach is comparable, right?
It's gorgeous here. Seagulls.
So what shirt symbolizes your proudest moment or biggest success in football?
Yeah. Okay. Well, obviously, like my West Ham year would be just like half the jersey, proving that I could play pro. And like getting that FA Cup experience, it genuinely felt surreal, like a dream. I still even look back on it and go, wow, I'm so fortunate that I got that experience. And so that would be one of them. Honestly, I want to do a third of a jersey for these ones.
Do it.
Okay. The next one would be my Houston kit and coming back and kicking ass and being like, screw you, all you people that said I couldn't play here. I just won the whole damn thing.
Hell yeah.
And playing Chicago in the final too, and just being like, hi. Can't believe I even mentioned his name. Ew.
We can bleep it if you want.
Yeah, except please do. Actually, he doesn't deserve the airtime.
I absolutely will.
That would be the other third. And then honestly, the work that I did with the CBA negotiations for the first ever professional collective bargaining agreement is also one of the proudest moments for me, because I think for what the league had failed me early on, I can almost say I've had a direct impact in it not doing the same thing to future generations, and just at least taking the step forward. And honestly, the incredible work that Megan Burke has done is just, she's become like my new, like, I never really had role models growing up, but she is definitely like a role model for me. And I think just such a badass woman. I almost said some more, but maybe we leave that. Maybe we keep that in, but she deserves to know she's a badass. So yeah.
That's awesome. Well, we always end with the same 2 closing questions. I'm going to preface this first one by saying we can skip this if we want and just go to the last one. But we always ask, and I promise the second one is easier than this. The first closing question that we ask is, what is a good both and moment from your career where you both worked really hard and an opportunity came about that you were able to take advantage of because you were working so hard?
Yeah, I think that turning point jersey would be a good reference, because in that same time, not only did I get to go play pro, but then I got called into my first ever US full team camp to like help. And that felt like a super self-realization that I belonged at this level. Yeah.
Okay, and then the final question we ask everybody, which is World Cup or Olympics?
As in, like, which one's better?
Just which one would you prefer?
I feel like we're meant to say World Cup because it's like football associated. However,
Bri, there's no right or wrong answers. There's no
I
right or
watched
wrong
the
answers.
Olympics. That's what I watched growing up, was the Olympics. So I would say Olympics because it covers all the sports. And so, yeah, I think that's, for me, that's what I would be most drawn to, is an Olympic gold medal. Like, you could smack someone in the head with one of those. That's so cool. I've seen one. Sophie Schmidt had one, and she brought it one night to the bar, and I said, "We have an Olympic gold medalist." And it was the coolest feeling, and it wasn't mine.
Did you get to try it on?
Oh yeah, but I felt kind of weird, you know? It was like, I don't know, you know, you shouldn't be putting this on. It's not yours. But it was cool to hold. It was really heavy. They're actually very heavy.
Bri, thank you so much. I'm going to pass over to Allie because, again, I feel like, Allie, you open it, you close it. You two have the history. You do it.
I just want to say thank you so much again for coming on our podcast. Where can people find you if you want people to find you?
Yes, I am on Instagram as well as TikTok a little bit as of late. Not as much, but it's Bri Visalli.
Perfect.
Well, thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time. And everybody watch Brighton mid-season WSL to check out Bri in action on the pitch. Thanks again, Bri.
Thank you.
And that is all for this week at the Women's Soccer Show. Make sure you check out our socials. Make sure you check out our Patreon. We have got an exclusive interview up there with Ellie Sargent, Ellie Leake, and Rhianne Cleverly from the game previewing the Cardiff Lewis game that happened this Sunday. So make sure you check that out.
We've also got the unedited version of Bri's interview that you just listened to. It's got an extra 15 minutes on it. So Check that out. News in 10, it's all there.
Exactly. Signing off for this week, as ever, I've been Allie.
I've been Sarah. Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
This podcast was edited by Monkey Hill Media. Visit monkeyhillmedia.com for more information.